Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Dill. Late Tuesday night, Jim Nagy, the Oklahoma Sooners, wasting no time getting extremely active in the transfer portal. Look, we got to talk about two commitments in the span of 10 minutes for the Oklahoma Sooners. Now, most notably, former Cal running back Jaydn Ott, really one of the best running backs, not only in the transfer portal, in the country going into 2025. That headlines what we need to talk about. Sneaky good addition from Stanford offensive lineman Jake Maikkula, a guy that plays a lot of different positions, gives you some position flex on the inside of the offensive line. Dill, this morning we got up and talked about Oklahoma, and I posed the question, hey, what I'm most excited about is this is the first time we really get to see general manager Jim Nagy in action. He's wasting no time getting active. And Dill, the thing that stands out to me, and you hear so many national media members just focus on the question marks about this Oklahoma team. And let's be fair, I think the Oklahoma fans would certainly agree with this, that there are a few question marks about Oklahoma going into 2025. Well, Dill, guess what? You could also make the argument that Oklahoma has one of, if not the best quarterbacks in the country, and a defense that's probably top 3 in the SEC. And so you look at this Oklahoma team going into 2025, there's a lot to be excited about. And I think Jim Nagy recognizes that this team has a chance to be really good in 2025. Why don't we push our chips into the middle of the table and make sure we're doing everything we can to surround John Mateer with the pieces necessary to have a good offense in the 2025 year? That's what you're seeing Jim Nagy do. Now, I want to start with Jaydn Ott. I want to transition to the Stanford offensive lineman, Jake Maikkula, who, Dill, we both have spent some time watching. We do like. Before we get into it, as always, to the Oklahoma fans, number one, appreciate you guys. The amount of support that the Oklahoma fans have shown the boys throughout spring practice has been amazing. Can't thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, Dill. Much more importantly, if Tuesday night is any sign of what's to come for the next couple of weeks, I feel like you're going to be putting on that Oklahoma commitment sweatshirt a decent amount over the next couple of weeks. Dill, I will give you the tee box here. Cal running back Jaydn Ott coming to Oklahoma. How are we feeling about it?
You needed a playmaker. You needed a one. You needed
Agreed.
a playmaker. You needed someone who can be explosive and play in space a little bit better than, frankly, we saw from those Oklahoma running backs. And I think he complements Robinson really well because I love Robinson's game. I think he does a good job of churning out hard yards, running tough, running physically. I thought like that Alabama game was almost like his coming out party, if you will, for just like, okay, this guy is going to be a very solid player. But you look at what they're going to want to do, I think, with this new offense under Arbuckle. I think they're going to want a guy who can operate in space and catch the football, and Jaydn Ott should be really good.
That's what fires me up the most. It's not only a really good running back. You know, you go back to 2023, we'll talk about those numbers. He was exceptional for Cal in 2023. It's a good football player coming into an offense that seems to be a perfect fit for this kid. Ben Arbuckle wants to go with some wide splits. He wants to spread defenses out, get some light boxes. Look, get the football Jaydn Ott in space. Good things are going to happen. They'll go back to 2023. And I get Jaydn Ott in the 2024 year. That was not a great Cal team with a horrendous Cal offensive line. The numbers took a little bit of a dip. That 2023 year, over 1,300 rushing yards. What stands out to me is we all know Jaydn Ott has a little bit of a different gear when he gets to the second level. Doesn't get nearly enough credit for how physical of a runner he can be. Now, again, his elite calling card is what he does when he gets to the second level and just outrunning defensive backs to the end zone. Dill, 833 of those yards in 2023 came after contact. This is a running back that can give you the best of both worlds. And look, it's hard to find that type of running back in college football. I think Jaydn Ott's one of those guys that does everything at a pretty damn high level.
And you knew, again, you wanted somebody to emerge. I'm not really sure you've totally gotten them. And I'm a huge Xavier Robinson fan, as I kind of laid out, but you still probably wanted that number one guy, especially as you're trying to put a stamp on this offense and kind of take it into another gear. I think, again, for what he is going to be, for the kind of 1 year rental they're going to get, I think this is a really good move, especially because, again, you don't necessarily want to totally shove Xavier Robinson or, frankly, Dylan Tatum aside. And I don't know that this move should have any real impact on either of those two guys.
Yeah, Taylor Tatum, Xavier Robinson, I think they have bright futures. You made a really good point. I think Oklahoma went through spring practice kind of hoping that maybe a running back would separate. And I think we continue, and we talked about this heading into spring practice. Like, all right, whether it's Javante Barnes, whether it's Gavin Sawshank, whether it's Xavier Robinson, like, is some running back going to separate and really be a difference maker for this offense? I don't know if we saw that. And so I think Jim Nagy said, all right, well, we'll go get a guy. And that's your guy in Jaydn Ott. You look at it and say, you have one of the best quarterbacks in the country. You have what I think is going to be an elite defense. We have to make sure we capitalize on this year. We got to put all the pieces around possible John Mateer. Jaydn Ott's one of them. Dill, a sneaky another conversation here is, Ben Arbuckle known for developing quarterbacks and developing passing attacks, of which he historically has done a phenomenal job of. He ran the football 55% of snaps at Washington State in 2024. You need a running back that can be a difference maker.
And you need a running back probably a little bit more in the Jaydn Ott model, because you look,
Agreed.
it's not going to be like two tight ends running power right down at teams. Like, again, it's a lot of quarterback run. It's a lot of zone read and QB options. Like, again, creative rushing attacks where you need running backs who can work a little bit more creatively. And again, I kind of think Xavier Robinson is the number 2 on this team. That's not really his game per se. So I think you really did want a guy like Jaydn Ott who can kind of operate there.
And you noted a really good pass catcher. You had 95 catches for 750 yards in his career. Like, you're not going to find many running backs that catch the ball out of the backfield better than Jaydn Ott. All right, less exciting, right? Less flashy. Jake Maikkula from Stanford. There's a lot to like. And I think every single Oklahoma fan that follows this program pretty damn closely, that's listening to this episode, is not opposed to Oklahoma taking as many offensive linemen as they possibly can going into 2025. Because the way I look at it, maybe you have some question marks about the pass catches with the recent injury news to Giovanni Gibson. The number one question is, how good can this Oklahoma offensive line be? Jake Maikkula, to me, is probably your next guy up on the inside of the offensive line. I don't think he comes in starts over a guy like Troy Everett at center. I don't think he starts over Eddie Pierre-Louis or Fabechi Nwewu, but he's probably the next guy up. And if you're Oklahoma, when the injuries started happening to Oklahoma last year, it became a disaster. Like this, the starting offensive line wasn't good enough, but the depth was certainly not good enough either. When you have the ability in the spring transfer portal window to grab a guy that has started 16 games at the Power 4 level, that has played solid football, that you know what you're getting, not to mention he can play all 3 positions on the offensive line. He started at center, started at left guard and right guard during his time at Stanford. You can't say no to this type of addition. He's going to play for Oklahoma at times, and they're going to need him to play well. And Dill, you have a lot of confidence that he's going to be able to come in when necessary and do the job the right way.
And the big thing is he can play center, because that's a position you look at like, you like Troy Everett, but like aside from him, you really have no confidence in your backup center.
Agreed with that.
Well, I think the fact that he can play that spot's really big. And you look, probably a good fit for what I think Ben Arbuckle wants to do, because he's a really good athlete. Like, he's not necessarily a guy who I think would excel in a phone booth and dealing with nose guards at the SEC level, head on man-to-man, if you will. But I think the way that Ben Arbuckle kind of runs his offense, I think his athleticism, his ability to play in space, I think he's a pretty good fit for what they're trying to do. So again, he's not maybe your prototypical like smash mouth center, but to be that athletic, again, you look at like kind of analyzing fit for what Arbuckle wants to do, I think he'll work out.
But that's a really good point. We started off the day. I woke up today, Tuesday morning, was drinking my cup of coffee and was talking about what's Jim Nagy going to do and what's it going to look like. One of the big takeaways from the 2 commitments that we got tonight was they're going to get guys that not only are quality football players that are proven commodities, but are guys that fit what Oklahoma wants to do. Because you look at both Jake and Jaydn Ott and say, those guys fit what Ben Arbuckle wants to do on the offensive side of the football.
They answer questions. They answer very specific questions I think this team has.
Fair.
like who was going to be your playmaking running back and who was going to be your backup center. I mean, you got your two kind of big answer. And again, you're maybe some reason to think that they're going to go after some wide receivers here as well.
Yes, they
You
will.
did answer two of the major questions I think coming into spring. And that's a lucky one because I wouldn't have thought Jaydn Ott, a guy of his ilk, would have been available necessarily in the spring. You really see that often.
Yeah, and it's going to be hard to get, and Oklahoma got it done. Dill, I look at it, and just from a pure like middle of April conversation, John Mateer and Jaydn Ott in the backfield is an extremely exciting proposition for a lot of Oklahoma fans. You know, coming off a season where it just felt like you didn't have a single difference. Like when Deion Burks got hurt and when Nick Anderson got hurt, like there was not a single difference maker on this Oklahoma offense. Now you're talking about, I mean, here's a question for you, Dylan. Can you name me a better quarterback, running back, wide receiver, one trio than John Mateer, Jaydn Ott, and Deion Burks? It's hard to do. And I guess the point is there are question marks about this team. And I feel like the national media loves to talk about the question marks and not recognize that we think this Oklahoma defense is going to be very good. And although you maybe have some question marks on this Oklahoma offense, playmakers make plays. You got 3 legitimate difference makers on this Oklahoma offense, not to mention what I think is one of the best offense coordinators in the country. For all the reasons you have to question this Oklahoma team going into 2025, you got a lot of reasons to buy stock too. Excited to see what Jim Nagy does the rest of the way. Appreciate the Oklahoma fans for tuning in on a Tuesday night. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.